Welcome to Cool Photoshop. This is the second video on creating realistic shadows rather than using Photoshop's drop shadow function. Okay, here's the image that we made in the earlier version. It's got a shadow of the man jumping, the shadow on the floor, fading and getting more blurry the further away from the subject, just the way real shadows work. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at another part of shadow creation, and that is putting people against odd shaped objects rather than a nice flat floor or a nice straight background. Now this is a little dude that we're going to put into this picture here. Okay, get rid of him. Now we'll size him and put him behind the guy. We'll stand him over by the table. Now let's just pretend that the man is jumping for joy because this little dude's come along and given him a present. Okay, so we'll sort of put him over here, approximately there. Just get him to about the right size. Okay. Now he looks as though he's sort of floating a bit, mainly because he's not anchored to anything by shadows. The first thing we'll do is we will do what we did with the main character, and we'll put a shadow on the floor. That's not really the subject of this video, so we'll do it very quickly because we're just repeating what we did with the other guy. Okay, we make a duplicate of the little dude's layer, go to curves, drag it top right down to the bottom, and that gives us black. So we've basically made a black version of the layer. Now we'll go to distort and we'll spread them around. I'm just doing this very quickly, very roughly. Right, that's better. Now you can sort of see what's going on. We just come in here a bit and you can see we really want him to look as though he's seriously in this image and standing against the table. So we'll zoom in here. Now to start with, see if we put a drop shadow in here, I'll just give you the demo here. We give him like a drop shadow, take it back there, give it a bit of blur, okay, like that, and you can see that no, it doesn't really work because it's showing that the table is as close as the blackboard way behind him. So let's just get rid of that. We'll duplicate him. We'll make him into shadow color, just like before. But this time around, we'll put him behind there. This time around, I'm going to make a few copies. Okay, first of all, we'll position him sort of approximately where we think the shadow will be, like that. Okay, then I will give him a blur about there. That's probably about right. We'll use that one anyway. Now I'm going to make a couple of extra copies and turn them off. We only want to deal with one at a time. In order to organize our shadows, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this guy off and turn the shadow off, and we'll concentrate on the table at the back. Now because these are nice straight lines, so I'm going to use the polygon lasso tool, and I'm going to select this section of the table here. Okay. Now I could save the selection and load it, but in this case it's a lot easier for me to go to the background and just do a copy and paste. So that now I've got that piece of the table as a separate layer. Come back and I'm going to do the front of the table, this part. Select. and we'll go down, make sure we're on the background layer again, and we'll do a copy and paste. And finally we will do the actual table surface. Simple 4-click selection because it's nice and rectangular. If this was a more difficult setup, do copy and paste there. If this was a more difficult shape, I would probably have to select out the background a little better. Alright, so if we come down here, if I turn that background layer off, you can see I've got 3 pieces here that I need to create my shadow. Right. Turn the guy back on. We'll turn on one of these shadows and we'll come down and we will find, I'll turn that off so that I can see. What do I want? I want that part there first. So now that I know that I've got that layer there, okay, I control click so that I get the layer. I've just selected that layer. I then go invert, Control I or Command I. I'm actually working on a Mac here. And then delete, and you can see the rest of the shadow has disappeared. So if I turn this guy off, you can see I now have a shadow that approximates just that front of the table. Right, I repeat it for the next couple of things. That's the one I want. Okay, Command click, invert, and while I'm still on that part of the shadow, delete. So I've now got another piece of shadow. Now for the table, that's a little different. This, I'll have to zoom out a bit. This requires a little bit of extra input because this shadow is not just a straight out shadow, this is on an angle. Easiest way to do that is to transform the shadow layer much the way as we did on the floor. Okay, now I'm just going to be quick and rough here. Alright, I'll just get this layer out here. It's just a matter of getting it into the right spot, approximately where I want it to be. Okay. Now, do the same as what we did before. We select that part of the table, invert, and delete. Okay, now we turn all those tables on, pieces of table off, turn the background on, and we zoom in, and we've got our 3 pieces of shadow. This table one's been cut off in a straight line because I only selected a certain part of the table. I could have got more, but it's not a big deal in this case because this shadow is going to be disappearing to nothing anyway. Turn it on to multiply, we'll bring it right back. See, there's only a little bit of shadow on there, see? Because the table has actually got extra light on it. And then with our layer mask, we'll just come in a bit like that, see? See, the shadow basically disappears. There's other light on that table. Now these 2 shadows here, one's further away. So this one here on the face of the table is quite close, so that needs to be quite hard. The one behind it is further away, so I can lighten that a bit more. They're 3 separate pieces of my shadow. Okay. And that's a lot more realistic than just putting a drop shadow or the same shadow over the whole thing. We'll just alter that one slightly. Zoom back out, and you can see he's actually in there against the table. Suddenly he's in the picture as opposed to being a floating element on there. Alright. And the interesting thing is that although I've worked over here on the right hand side of the image, if we zoom in and have a look at the left hand side, it actually works over here too. See, he's actually part of this background.